Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Leyla.
And this week, we kick off the season of spooks with a Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice musical double feature. Before we sing the entirety of the Banana Boat song, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, or following us on Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Layla.
Aaron.
How do you feel about one Mr. Timothy Burton?
I think he is a perfectly fine craftsman, but all of the most annoying people I've ever known in my life really, really like his work, which makes me slightly allergic to it.
Yeah, I saw a Blue Sky post recently that was like, hey, you have to be so careful when you don't want to confuse an author for their audience. And yeah, I think the Tim Burton effect is absolutely in effect for this one, because I've been like, I don't really give a shit about Beetlejuice because it's a Tim Burton thing. But as we watched both the original 1988 movie and the musical bits based off of it, I think I have a little bit more appreciation for Tim Burton. I still think that he doesn't know what a non-white person is, but like other than that, like I think he's okay.
Well, arguably nobody in the 80s. Well, no, hold on. We watched Die Hard. We talked about this because it seems like the late 80s and the early 90s, things were actually looking pretty up in terms of diversity. And then something happened in the Clinton and Bush eras.
In 2000, I believe. We recently did a musical on it. Anyway.
2001, have you for gore? So Tim, I like Tim Burton's live action works more than I like his animated works. Like Corpse Bride I thought was just okay. The only song I like from Nightmare Before Christmas is Sally's song. But Edward Scissorhands, fun.
Yeah.
This.
Sure.
Fun.
Right. I do think that I respect Tim Burton a lot because he has the ability as a creator to get into the minds of people that are aged 10 to 15 and permanently change them forever. And that as a creative, that is what I want to do to my audience, is like put a worm in their brain that's like, oh, this is still with me even 10 years later and it's making me a weirdo. That's like the key to getting a good audience. And I think that's, whatever I think about Mr. Burton, you got to give it up for that.
I was going to make fun of you because I was going to be like, oh, you think Catholic kaiju is the way that's going to happen? And then I thought about it for 5 seconds and I remembered the Helsing shelf.
Yeah. So maybe shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Well, hey. I meant to make fun of you. I made fun of me instead.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the first movie and then we can go through the musical numbers together?
Yeah, all right. Beetlejuice was made in 1988 in a small Connecticut town. Barbara and Adam Maitland spend their vacation in their large, beautiful home. And so millennial of us that we both noticed the large home, and also when the realtor makes an offer on the home, we immediately did the inflation calculation.
Yeah, we were like, oh man, how much is it? It's like $700K now. It's like, okay, well, damn.
It's bad. They cannot have children, but they seem pretty content doing their little projects together. While going to the store to get some paint for Adam's miniatures, they drive off a bridge. At first, it seems as though they merely lost their car in the encounter, but it becomes very quickly clear that they have drowned. Obsessed with the way they die because it's so nonchalant.
Yeah, they just try to swerve to miss a dog that's in the bridge, and they just plump in the. Well, also the dog does a flip on them, right? Yeah,
the dog was sitting on a plank that was keeping their car balanced, and then jumped out.
Yeah, and then just like allows them to drown. Very funny. One thing that I think is very funny about this movie is that it introduces the concept that the netherworld, the underworld, the afterlife, or whatever, is on Saturn. And Saturn is also Arrakis from Dune for some reason, because there are sandworms in this.
And they rule.
They're very cool. So Tim Burton's, like, this is 1988, so, it's still pre-CGI. There's a lot of weird puppets and practicals in this movie, and they all look very good.
Yeah, there's some fun stop motion sequences, and it really shows that, like, even when some of it is a little bit janky, it doesn't really take you out of it because the entire movie is so weird that you're like, yeah, okay, sure, I buy this. So Adam is building a little miniature town in like a diorama of the town in the attic, and it's his big pet project. So like basically, the moment that the new family buys the home, which, by the way, Jane the realtor does not fucking hesitate. She is like, nope. I am selling this house. The house is sold while she's still in her mourning clothes from the funeral. Yeah. So when the Dietzes move in, which is the new family, like, the Maitlands run up to the attic, and then they stay ghosts in the attic because they don't want anybody to touch these miniatures, and it's really, really good. And while the Maitlands are, like, reckoning with all these changes, right, they just died, the house is sold, there's a new family, all this shit, they find this handbook for the recently deceased, and they don't get it, because it's a very confusing manual, and, like, it doesn't actually tell them anything, and they try to make, like, the best of their situation, but it's really hard. So the Dietzes, in the meantime, is Charles the father. He is a real estate developer who has had a mental breakdown, and I've never related to a character more in my entire life, because I too just want to look at birds. I too don't like noises. I want to go to the upstate to vibe and watch birds, and no one will let me. His wife Delia, who is played by the fucking inimitable Catherine O'Hara, just Catherine O'Haraing it the fuck up. She's a sculptor, she's an artist, and her art is dangerous, Aaron. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And their goddaughter, baby Winona Ryder, Lydia.
I love the like breadth of and range of the actors and actresses in this movie. It's just like you got baby-faced Alec Baldwin, who has done a complete change in the last 40 years. Completely different man. But like, yeah, especially seeing little Winona Ryder is so, because like truly the first thing that I saw her in was Stranger Things, like, 8 years ago, which is wild because like, she had this meteoric rise and then dropped off for a bit. But yeah, I think she just crushes it at Lydia. She's so fun. She's like absolutely the heart of this movie. And then Delia is a weird one because like I don't think they give her character much to work with here besides the fact that she's kind of like a art snob hippie type. Yeah. But like Catherine O'Hara, her portrayal is still so manic that I think it just really it's really strong despite the perhaps half-baked writing.
Catherine O'Hara does such a great whack job mom, because she does it in here, she does it in Schitt's Creek, which incredible. I think about not the rural juror, I'm thinking that's 30 Rock, of the vineyard commercial she does, Herb Ertlinger Vineyards. I think about that constantly. She is peak comedy. And then also I have been trying to convince, I need to shoehorn, next time we do movies for book club, we have to watch Penelope. It is the most underappreciated 2006 rom-com with Christina Ricci and, of course, Catherine O'Hara playing her mom. And it is another fantastic manic performance of this woman.
It's really good.
So I agree. I love this cast. I think it's great. I did think baby Alec Baldwin, I did think he was Bob Odenkirk for a minute.
Right, I can see that.
But that was Alec Baldwin pre-Rust. Having taken a life.
Yep, different guy. Real quick though, I want to touch on Winona Ryder plays Lydia, who's goth, like explicitly goth, and yes. Like I was like, when did the goth subculture start to rise? And it's like 1980s, right? Yeah. Goths has only been around for like 45-ish years at this point, at our point, but like here they've only been around for like less than 10 years. So it's a very interesting to see like this early portrayal of what the goth subculture looks like, and I think it's like very it's a very like flattering portrayal, I think, to make your main character part of this like weird kind of edgy subculture, but also like very sympathetic. I really am grateful because the 80s are broadly considered to be a very conservative decade in America. It's nice to see them treat Lydia with such they're not trying to make a joke of the fact that she's goth, which shocked me.
Well, Tim Burton is all about sympathetic freaks.
True.
So this is a very Burton-esque move, but I agree. And I also like that she's an accessible goth, where like she wears all these like really black dour clothes and these fucking incredible headdresses.
Yeah.
She loves like a veil. Ooh, what a costuming choice. But you know, because a lot of the times when we see goths portrayed in media, it's like the full like Metallica, like
Right.
Kiss makeup. And she's just a teenage girl wearing all black. And I'm like, I'm into this. This is great. So, basically, what ends up happening is that Catherine O'Hara walks into this house, and she basically throws down an ultimatum. She says, "Hey, I need to make this house my own, or I'm going to go insane, and I'm going to take you with me." That is almost verbatim, I think. And she calls in her. He's not her guru in this one. He's her interior designer.
Interior designer, yeah.
Yeah, her Otho. Who comes in and, again, very clearly, like, portrayed to be, like, a New York gay man, like an Upper East Side gay. But, you know, it's the 80s. AIDS crisis. Delicate. So they start redesigning the house, and Barbara and Adam are like, fuck this, actually. They're messing with our house. They lock the attic so that at least they can't mess with the miniatures. They're like, hey, we got to get rid of these guys. In the handbook, they discover that they can get some help. So they draw a door and they knock 3 times as they're supposed to. And they travel to the afterlife to meet their caseworker, Juno. One of my favorite touches about this movie is that if you commit suicide, you become an afterlife bureaucrat.
Yeah, which is, I think, very sympathetic as a current bureaucrat who, you know, not often, but sometimes working with the public makes me suicidal. So I like all these portrayals of these people. It's very fun. Yeah,
and Miss Argentina is great.
Very good.
A character that comes back in the musical, which is also very good. So Juno is not very helpful to them, though I want to be Juno when I grow up. I, too, want to be serving cunt, smoking a cigarette and a long string of pearls and telling people what to do. Fantastic. She warns them against calling Beetlejuice the bioexorcist because he is her former protege and troublemaker. Barbara and Adam proceed with a plan to scare the Dietzes away, but only succeed in revealing themselves to Lydia, who can see them. Their plan, by the way, is to put sheets over their head and moan.
So I take umbrage with this scene because, like, while the putting the sheets on their head and moaning is very funny, and it, like, doesn't get the attention of any of the parents of the Dietzes, Lydia hears the moaning and thinks it's her parents having sex. And takes her camera out and starts, when the ghosts come in, she starts snapping photos, and she's like, oh, you all are such sexual deviants, you know, please keep that to yourself. But also taking photos all the time. It's like, hey, girl, what did you expect to see?
And why did you want to capture it?
Right. I don't know about that one, Timothy.
Yeah, and so she picks up the photo at that point, and she goes, oh, no legs, and that's when she figures out they're ghosts, and I'm like, okay. Mind you, she had seen them in the window before because she's, like, the only, like, weirdo in the house, and so her mind is, like, more open to the supernatural.
The line is, live people ignore the strange and unusual. I myself am strange and unusual, which rips.
Rips, and the delivery on Winona's part is so fucking good. You know, meanwhile, like, Beetlejuice is showing up in ads right now. He is projecting advertisements to Adam and Barbara, the Maitlands, to be like, hey, you got a problem with living people? I can help you. I can exorcise the living people from your space. All you have to do is say my name 3 times. And this is Michael Keaton, right? Is Beetlejuice?
I believe so.
It is a very erratic performance. It's a good performance, but it's very chaotic and very strange. But anyway.
One thing that I, throughout this movie, was shocked by was the fact that the titular Beetlejuice does not show up that much.
No.
He just kind of dips in and out, but he's mainly like a plot catalyst. He doesn't actually move the plot forward, but he like kind of dips in from time to time.
And I think that's part of the reason I was so hesitant about watching this movie was because I was like, I don't know if I want, like, the Joker, but weirder, like Tim Burton's Joker, right?
Yes, it is that.
Like, I don't know if I want that for 90 minutes, but it wasn't that for 90 minutes. It was a nice story about this couple who wants to, like, keep their homes and then kind of spiritually adopts this teenage girl. It was great.
Right.
Barbara and Adam briefly summon Beetlejuice into their model town, but he's a fucking creep, so they unsummon him. This was a very funny note that ended up being a little bit predictive, but I said sexual harassment is bad. So in the musical, they should either take out the sexual harassment or they should make it more equitable, and he should sexually harass both of them. And Aaron just wrote interesting note. we'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to it.
I like saw you type that into your Google Doc, and I was like, oh, what a unique thing to say. I wonder if this will come up later.
And boy, howdy does it. So they plan to work together with Lydia to ruin her father's dinner party because her father invited a big investor. Because he has, Aaron, did you understand what they were trying to do with the town?
So yeah, their dad is a real estate mogul. She's like talking to this, what's his name? Maxie Dean, who is like this New York real estate guy. And I think they make it a little bit more clear in the musical, but I think in the movie, they're just trying to like, redo the house and then like resell it like sort of like a house flipper sort of deal, and maybe expand it to the entire community and do the same thing because the land is cheaper here. But yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense besides like, oh, they have like a business motive to invite this guy.
Yeah. So yeah, they invite whatever. So her father's throwing a dinner party and he wants them to be this idyllic family, and Lydia's like, fuck that. So she decides to work together with the Maitlands, who again, summoned Beetlejuice, but he was a fucking creep. And then they were like, back into the model town you go, actually. We want none of this. And this is, I think, the best scene in the musical and in the movie. The Maitlands possess the party guests and make them do the Banana Boat song, and they make them dance to it. So all these, like, dinner guests are just, like, compelled to sing and dance. But unfortunately for them, the real estate guy fucking loves it and wants to turn the house and the town into a theme park.
Yeah. This scene is bonkers. And like kind of the best way. Like they're having like shrimp cocktails, and then like the shrimp cocktails become hands. So like the shrimps are like fingers with claws, and they like come up and grab the guests. But like they're all possessed, and like they're forced to sing the Banana Boat song, which for those of you who don't know, you might know the like chorus, which is like, Deo, me say Deo, daylight coming, me one go home, which is like a traditional Jamaican work song when Jamaican workers were working on banana plantations. That's the history of it. But like, it is such a weird, bonkers song to include in a like ostensibly horror, like spooky movie, that I was completely like, because they foreshadow it in the opening credits. I was like, why is the Banana Boat song here? And it comes back up, but like there are two Harry Belafonte songs in this movie and in the musical, and I think they're both used to great effect. Yeah,
I agree. It is a very bonkers song to use here, but it's such a fun scene. But anyway, so it doesn't work, and everybody goes to the attic, and they're like, we want to see the ghosts, we want to see the Maitlands, and the Maitlands hide. But, unfortunately, in this process, they discover, the living adults discover the model town, and part of this is, like, they're like, hey, we should, like, take these models and use them for the presentation to the investors, and we're gonna call, because at this point, it's not the big investor that's there. It's like, Otho, and then some other random Otho's date.
What's his name? It's Maxie Dean. I'm sure it's Maxie Dean.
Maxie Dean, is he there with his wife at that point?
I think so.
Because I think they come separately after, because his wife is into ghosts. And that's because Otho makes the suggestion at this dinner party that this is how you get Maxie here, is you show him the ghosts.
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah, like, I don't know. This whole movie was a blur to me, except for the singing scenes.
So this was Otho and his date, who was super depressed and threatening suicide constantly, and then two other people who I don't think are very important. So basically, the Maitlands disappear. They're hanging out a window, and the adults are like, everyone except for the Dietzes is like, well, obviously we just hallucinated that, so like, this is nothing, we're leaving. At which point the Dietzes get pretty upset with Lydia, and they're like, well, fine, if your little ghosts won't cooperate with us, we're gonna like make them cooperate. This is when they summon you've said his name so many times that it leaves my brain as soon as you say it. The big investor.
Maxie Dean.
Thank you, Maxie Dean. This is when Maxie Dean gets summoned with his wife, who's very into ghosts.
Yes.
Otho, by the way, as he's in the attic looking at the miniatures, finds the guides for the recently deceased and sticks it in his jacket. So at this point, the Maitlands are fucking in trouble. Their haunting got fucked, there's photographic evidence of the undead, and their guidebook is with Otho. So, fucking their caseworker is pissed. And she's like, and you fucking summoned Beetlejuice. Like, what are you... Hello? So now the Maitlands have to unfuck this mess, and they need Lydia's help to do it. Unfortunately, to prove to Maxie Dean that the ghosts are there when he comes for the dinner, he decides to summon them. So the Dietzes find their old wedding clothes because they need a personal object, and Otho starts to read this ritual of summoning, and he starts to summon Barbara and Adam, but unfortunately the way he's summoning them, they like start... He's basically performing an exorcism.
Right.
They're starting to die. And Lydia's freaking out. She's like, you have to stop this. Like, stop hurting them. And Otho's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know how to stop this. So Lydia summons Beetlejuice into the world of the living. And so now you have that investor. You have Otho. You have the Dietzes, so Lydia's parents, Lydia, the Maitlands, Adam and Barbara, and now fucking Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice's whole goal is like, I want to be free and I want to be alive. So he is, how to put this, violent and a murderer. So the whole reason the Maitlands unsummoned him earlier was because he almost killed Lydia's dad. And now he's been unleashed. He's fucking here. And he is going to fuck with these people until they die. And he wants to marry Lydia, because if he marries Lydia, he gets to come into the world of the living. Lydia is, again, a teenager. Mm-hmm. Not great. Aaron, this movie is chaos. And I think explaining it is chaos. And listeners, if you are confused, don't worry. So are we.
Yeah, I think it holds together pretty good for the first 45 minutes. And as soon as Beetlejuice gets introduced, which is, to be clear, halfway through the movie,
yes.
It goes completely off the rails. And, like, honestly, he's still not even there that much. But, like, whenever he gets involved, there's just, like, puppets and, you know, big snakes and, you know, all sorts of spooky things going on. There's a bit where the Dietzes, like, have to pull their faces out to try to make them into, like, more, like, scary, you know, faces, and like they get kind of stuck like that for a little bit. It's really good. But yeah, like, I don't think any of this movie makes sense after Beetlejuice gets involved. Like, I think the structure is bonkers, and unfortunately that bleeds into the musical. But yeah, it's all over the place.
I think the biggest indictment of the structure of this movie is that the musical gets 75% of the way through it in Act 1.
Right, yes.
And then has to kind of like pad out Act 2.
Mm-hmm. And they do it in a fun way. But yeah, it is absolutely just like, the movie didn't give us a whole lot to work with here. Yeah, so at this point, Barb and Adam are like trapped on the dinner table, and then they try, when Beetlejuice is trying to marry Lydia, they're trying to say his name 3 times to basically the rules of the movie are a little bit different than the rules of the musical in terms of Beetlejuice. And so in the movie, it's whoever says his name 3 times, they summon him to their plane of existence, basically. Mm-hmm. So because Lydia was the last person to say his name 3 times, he is like in the plane of the living or close to it. And then Barbara's trying to summon him back to like the miniature. But unfortunately for her, he throws her to the surface of Saturn. It happens to the best of us, I think. And Adam gets miniaturized and sent to the model. But before he can wed Lydia, Barbara rides a sandworm into the house and eats Beetlejuice. Mm-hmm. Why not? Sure.
Everyone, the ending of the movie is that everybody lives happily ever after in the new house. Adam and Barbara share the house with the Dietzes. They're like secondary parents to Lydia, and they occasionally levitate her and do the Shake Senora song, which was also foreshadowed from the beginning. And Aaron, you found a Pitbull version of the Shake Senora song.
Yeah, apparently Pitbull, Sean Paul, and T-Pain did a cover using samples of Shake Sonora in 2011, and it's pretty good. Listen, you get T-Pain, Sean Paul, and Pitbull in a studio together, you're gonna have some good tracks on your hands.
You're gonna get an ass shaker out of that.
Yeah, no, it's very good. Check it out. But it is wild that they made that. But yeah, I think it is. I think the Shake Sonora song there at the end of Beetlejuice is like arguably one of the best scenes in the movie. It's not an incredible scene, but it is like very sweet just to see little baby Winona Ryder like having a fun dance time, being levitated by her ghost step parents. Like it's really cute, and yeah, I mean, I think it's just like very heartwarming, and it gives you like a much more coherent, beat to end on than whatever the fuck happened in the last, 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it's so, this movie focuses so, by the way, tight 90 minutes, love, obsessed. We must return to the tight 90 minutes. This movie is so much more focused on, because Beetlejuice isn't in it as much, it's more about the relationship between Lydia and the Maitlands, who are like the first people to just genuinely be nice to her. Her parents are kind of like the parents in Coraline, where it's not that they don't like her, they just don't give her the time of day. And it doesn't have the same emotional crux as the musical does, because the musical makes some changes. Which, speaking of, do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, let's switch over to the musical now, which we both watched on an Internet Archive bootleg. Which
we
brought tickets to the Broadway show and watched it live. The only other way to legally watch it.
And we time traveled for sure.
Yeah, we also we planned this episode in 2018, and we saw the 2018 show with Sophia and Caruso, and it was great.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, Internet Archive is already having some problems, so like I think people know about that one at this point.
Sure, but I mean, we've never broken a law in our lives. We don't even jaywalk.
Yes, obviously, of course. So like, definitely using the same structure as the movie, but like doing it in a much cleaner way. And they make one really notable change, which is that they explicitly say that it's implied in the movie, but doesn't really get talked about, that Lydia Dietz, her mom has died. They open on her mom's funeral, and it kind of sets up her arc through the story, which is that she really loved her mom, and now she's really sad that her mom's gone. And her dad, Charles, doesn't know what to do with that, because he's lost his wife, and they're both very sad. So that's the first number, Invisible. Pretty good opening number. But what really starts to get things kicked off is the number "The Whole Being Dead Thing," which introduces Beetlejuice. And let me see if I can't get the Beetlejuice musical, because I believe the actor who plays Beetlejuice in the 2018 version is a man named Alex Brightman. Which Leyla, what's he known for again?
Well, Alex Brightman, mostly this is like his biggest role, but he's also in the animated shows Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. He plays some secondary characters, which I think is just fun. That's a fun little...
Yeah. But I think Brightman's performance of Beetlejuice here is just like, sorry, Michael Keaton, but his performance here is way more compelling and, likable than the Keaton Beetlejuice. And I think that's the writing issue mostly, but like, I really like how Beetlejuice is portrayed in this. But he's very much, Sierra pointed this out to me, but like, he's very much like a genie from Aladdin character, and that he is doing like all this like meta humor and references that kind of like show him to be like out of the dimensions of the world. Like he's a demon in the same way that the genie can like access information that the in-universe characters can't. And I think that's really interesting. Like he does like a flash dance, like pull the water down on the chair thing in one point while he's straddling Adam. The bisexual harassment, diversity win. The diversity pervert demon is bisexual. Yes, no, they made him bisexual in this one, which is very funny. But yeah, he explains the rules. He's like, okay, my whole deal is that no one can see me. I want to be seen. I want to be able to have agency in the world. And the way that I get that is by having a living person say my names 3 times. This is a change from the movie. But like it does mean that only certain people can summon him. And that's why it gives Lydia a lot more power in this one.
And it takes some power away from the Maitlands because like he just kind of appears to them. They can't summon him or miniaturize him or do anything.
Yep. And I do think that, though, broadly, all the characters in the musical are stronger than the movie, even though they take agency away from the Maitlands.
Yeah, because... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say the Maitlands, because in the original movie, the Maitlands can't have a baby, and in this one, they don't want to have a baby, because they are like, afraid of taking the next step. And so they're burying themselves in hobbies. And actually, I would say the whole show is kind of an indictment of, like, white middle-class people. A little bit.
I mean, it's definitely aimed, right? You don't put an NPR joke in your musical if you're not aiming for squarely the New York audience of white liberals, right?
Yeah, there's that joke. There's a bunch of like Republican jokes.
Farmers market joke at one point. There's a joke where they're talking about Beetlejuice is trying to teach the Maitlands to be scary, and he's like, "What's the scariest thing to you?" Barbara says like, "Oh, it's the Trader Joe's parking lot," and Adam says, "The Electoral College."
Adam is right.
Listen, he's right, but it is very much like a white person thing to be mostly afraid of the Electoral College, I feel. This is also in 2018, so like post-Trump, like people are feeling a little bit more politics-y these days.
And post-Hamilton, when Broadway has never been more, to steal your turn of phrase, Hamilton liberal.
Yeah. The word woke shows up in this musical that like both
You're
me
woke,
and Leyla.
but we can take a joke here.
Yes. Both of us made the note like, like I guess this was before woke was being used as a slur. Like that 3-year period when we, mainstream stole it from Black Americans and then white racists stole it from mainstream media. And like you could say the word woke and not have it mean a certain thing.
I think the only usage of the word woke that I like in 2024 is when somebody says some benign inconvenience and then goes, because of woke.
Yes. Listen, we live in a very bad time historically, but like it is funny that the way that like reactionaries will take things over and then people will clown on reactionaries because the way they take things over is so goddamn stupid. So I like that about this little linguistic war we have going on the internet. Very fun. But yeah, so basically, like you were saying, like the whole arc with the Maitlands is that they are like big normies who are afraid to do anything. And then they fall through a hole in their hole in their floorboards, and they die.
It's just so funny because in both versions, the Maitlands dying is not a big deal. It's just like a thing that happens to move the plot along. But in the musical, it's even funnier because they don't even leave their house. There's not even like a beat on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they literally just like jump through. Beetlejuice makes a comment and then they come back on stage and they're like, oh, that was weird. Oh, we're looking at our corpses. It's really good. And then we get Beetlejuice introducing himself to them and being like, I've been waiting so long for you guys to die. This is great. We're all going to be buddies. And at this point, we do get him sexually harassing Adam. And sexual harassment isn't funny, folks. However... I think they do it in a way where, like, they are working with the original source material where Beetlejuice is genuinely, like, groping and being, like, pretty gross to Barbara in the movie that, like, definitely does not age well, and probably, wasn't great back in the 80s either. But, like, when you're using that as a frame of reference and then applying it and subverting it in this, 2018 context, I think it does work better. Like, is sexual harassment of men funny? Like, no, but like, I don't know. I did find it funny in this context. And like, it's hard to find nuance there.
Not to get too serious about Beetlejuice the musical, but like, it's two things that come up in modern conversation around literature, which is like, it's fucking fiction. Of course sexual harassment is bad. Of course. But the thing that the 80s did really well, Beetlejuice, Heathers, fucking, I started listing examples and I ran out after 2. Edward Scissorhands, there was just a lot of, like, dark comedies. And I think what people don't understand about dark comedies is dark comedy isn't just, like, again, edgy reactionaries doing, like, dead baby jokes, because that's contextless. But in this context, it works because it is emphasizing the helplessness of the Maitlands. It is a joke that works in context because it is in this, like, hyper vibrant, not hyper real as in hyper realistic as in high fidelity, but, like, more real than real, like, really oversaturated world. And in this oversaturated world is this demon named Beetlejuice who wants to fuck Adam Maitland so bad it makes him look stupid, right? And it's like, of course it's not funny in real life, but we are not in real life here. We are in a space here where the context makes it funny because the characters don't react to it like you would react to harassment in real life, which is I don't know, trauma, right?
Right.
I've been harassed. Was traumatizing.
Right.
And instead it's treated as part of, like, the goofy whack job kind of slapstick comedy, right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think that's a good way to explain it because, yeah, it's, I don't think it is trying to be a realistic portrayal. Yeah. It is, both taking the hypersexual, character of Beetlejuice in 1988 and then bringing it forward into the future and then making him kind of like, just like really, really horny for Adam, which is Adam is also just like a normal, like a very normie dad type, which is very good.
Yeah. Again, it's just like it's just a function of the world. It's not, it isn't sexual harassment the way we understand it. It is a function of Beetlejuice.
Yes. I think that's a good way to think about it. Anyway, basically they have this like conversation with Beetlejuice and they're like, okay, I'm going to help you learn how to scare away the people who are now occupying your house. And then we get the Dietzes. And speaking of horny, Charles and Delia in this one, in the first movie, they don't really like each other so much. In this one, they like each other a lot.
They are fucking.
Yeah, it's very explicit. There's even a scene with them in bed together. It's really funny. And it's also like nice. It's nice to see that they like each other and they're like crazy about each other in a gross way. Not in gross like undesirable, but like gross as in like, oh, they are like so into each other it makes me nauseous. Like I really love the way that those characters work together. Delia is now a life coach specifically hired to help Lydia get through the trauma of losing her mom, which is a wild choice. I love that. And like, now they've developed this relationship. Charles is technically her employer, but they're hooking up, which is great. We learned that Charles's motivation is to turn the neighborhood into a gated community. He is still going with the real estate thing. I wonder what happened in the 80s and 90s that real estate developers were such common villains. I'm sure it has something to do with Ronald Reagan or George H.W. Bush. I just don't know what.
It always does. I just looked it up. I wanted to know when the Addams Family musical came out because I feel like now that I'm hearing you say it out loud, it feels like Beetlejuice took some beats from the Addams Family musical, and it does feel like the change from the Maitlands the Dietzes not really being super into each other in the movie to like being super horny for one another in the musical feels very Morticia and Gomez Addams.
Right. That's a good comparison. And then we get the song where Lydia like gets to sing about how she's feeling and like establishing her character. It's called Dead Mom, and it's the best song in the musical in my opinion. This musical loves a power ballad, and it cast very well for the power ballads. So we watched the 2018 version. The person who plays Lydia is Sophia Ann Caruso. So she was 17 years old when she played this role, and she is one of the best goddamn singers I've ever heard. I was like blown away. She is so fucking good.
So when she was singing the first song, I was a little iffy on her because she sings in cursive. But only when she's in like certain parts of her range. And then Dead Mom happens and she is just belting. I have never heard that kind of power. She has incredible range. There's some points where she sounds like she's almost screaming, and it's just like, it's kind of almost a heavy metal like emphasis to the note. What a talent. What a gal.
Yeah, no, like just thinking about it, like especially later on when she is like bringing that raw vocal like fry to like especially the emotional songs, like it just like chokes me up instantly. She's so good. Shout outs to Sophia and Caruso. I hope you have a long career ahead of you because I can't wait to see what it looks like. I hope to keep seeing you in future performances. Yeah, basically we get that. We get the scene where Beetlejuice is trying to teach the Maitlands how to be scary, but they're just big fucking dorks and they suck at it. And I you know, from what we could see from our viewing, you know, our video that we were watching, like there's just like a lot of like very fun staging going on here, where like at one point Beetlejuice does a soliloquy where like a full gospel choir comes up behind him and he's just like, I want so badly to be free, but these fucking dipshits are so bad at it. Oh my God, please save me, or Satan, whichever one is applicable. Why did you do this to me? It's really funny. And he's just like, all right, y'all suck. And he leaves to go smoke on the roof, basically.
And he looks so pathetic.
He is such a wet, sad man. It's awesome. We also get a number between Lydia and Delia, which gives Delia more characterization than anything in the movie, which is we get Delia's backstory, and her whole deal is like trying to get Lydia to see that everything happens for a reason. And we get her talking about how her husband and his boyfriend ran out on her together and they got on a boat to Rome. And like now she's all into, you know, new age hippie shit. You know, she says namaste and buys crystals and goes to sweat lodges. And, you know, she is portraying a type.
And the crystals speak to her. And what do they say? Buy more crystals.
It's a good joke.
It's a good joke.
But yeah, I really like Delia's portrayal here. And like they don't give the actress who plays Delia too much, Leslie Kritzer. But like when she is on stage, because she also comes back as Miss Argentina, she is doing a great job. I'm very impressed. It's very impressive.
Yeah. She's also there are a lot of powerhouse singing voices in this show. She also, because her song with Lydia, this one here is like, I think they did such a good job with the lyrics of the song too, because yeah, she doesn't get a ton of screen time, but you know exactly what her deal is. And this song is so revealing because she just like gets into her own kind of trauma and what happened to her and why she is the way she is.
Yeah.
And it's like
there's okay, here's the line, which is like you know, Delia is talking to Lydia, and Lydia is like, oh, luxury, positivity is a luxury that few can afford. And then Delia is like, no, one day you may wake up alone because your husband and his boyfriend bought a boat and then they sailed away to Rome. So you cry yourself to sleep in deep despair, talking to the walls because there's no one there. And you have to buy a cat because that's your last chance to have a family. Take it from me that your aging ass will have to believe that everything happens for a reason. Put some more fun in the world. A little I am still young in the world. Prepare to take your eggs and freeze them. And Lydia's like, is this still about me? It's so good.
And you're like, oh, I get what your whole deal is.
Very, very funny song. It's great. But yeah, basically, you know, at this point, Lydia goes and we have the scene where she meets the Maitlands. They're trying to be scary and she's not scared of them because they have the little sheets over their head. And she's like, oh, y'all are just a bunch of goofballs, but you can help me frighten my family out. And when she goes to confront her family and be like, oh, there's ghosts. Look at these scary ghosts, which her family can't see. She finds that her dad has been in bed with Delia and that he has proposed to her. And Lydia's like, oh, this sucks. I hate this. I wish I was dead. She goes up on the roof to try to kill herself. But there she meets Beetlejuice, who's looking like the saddest, wettest man of the world. And they have the song Say My Name, where Beetlejuice tries to convince Lydia to, say his name 3 times and then make him, corporeal in the world. And like you brought this up in your notes, Leyla, but like there is like such a more dynamic contrast between this scene and the way it's done in the movie. It's much more snappier and quicker, and I feel effective in the musical than the film.
Yeah, because it's just like it's always build up to Beetlejuice, and then she just says it.
Yes,
and it's like, okay, this is just okay. And meanwhile, in the musical, we get this whole number, which is the most popular number in the show. It's the one that was advertised everywhere. Lydia gets to be a little bit of a smartass. It's a good character moment for her. And she's teasing Beetlejuice the whole time because she's saying, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, and then a word that starts with B to continue her next verse. It's fun. It's a great time. Alex Brightman's also doing a great job because he's just like physically ecstatic for her to say his name, and then she lets him down. She's edging Beetlejuice. It's great.
Yeah, it's really fun. But like it is such they have such good chemistry on stage where she is just like constantly being like egging him on, and then he's like, and I think it works so well. But yeah, eventually she like gets him to say that like any ghost can do possession. And she's like, oh, is that true? Then what do I need you for? She throws him off the roof. And then she asks the Maitlands to do a possession to like ruin her dad's dinner party, like in the movie. And we get the Deo scene again, which is great.
Good in the movie, good in the musical.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely more dancing here. It's very silly. At one point, a big pig puppet comes to life and dances around, and it's very floppy and gross. But it's really fun. Like I just think the musical medium works so well for this kind of story, where like this like kind of goofball, like slapstick humor really, really shines through.
There's a trend. Again, I'm going to pull 2 examples when I'm talking about trend. But I feel like the 80s dark comedy does really well in the musical format. Like, I love the fucking Heathers musical. But it's the same thing, right? Like, teen suicide, not fucking funny. But 80s dark comedies just understood how to make it funny because it's a real if you don't laugh, you cry. And so it's just, I don't know, it works because it's camp, it's weird, it's dark, it's grim. But, like, musicals require you to have such a high level of suspension of disbelief as it is, that, like, you can put yourself in that world so much easier and, like, laugh at things that aren't funny in the real world. And, I don't know. I love it. I think if there's any other 80s dark comedies, I am an adaptation hater. But if there's 80s dark comedies that can come to the stage, I'm in.
Yeah. Worth a shot, I suppose. Same thing happens. The big media mogul is like, hey, I didn't care about your project before, but now because there's a haunted house, we're going to be super rich. Lydia gets very upset by that. And this is also a really important moment of agency because Lydia is the one who summons Beetlejuice here. She's like, okay, well, if this didn't work, then fine. I'm going to go back to that weirdo. She calls him, says his name 3 times, and he kicks everybody out of the house. They have a really cool sandworm puppet in the musical. It's just like this enormous creature that's like black and white stripes, think of Tim Burton style, like absolutely that. But also it's got like a second mouth like the alien from Alien. So it's really fun. I love that sandworm prop. It's really great. But like, yeah, that's how they kick everybody out.
Yeah. Oh. Which, different from the movie, this is where we start to diverge because the Maitlands like are stuck in the attic now, and then the adults got kicked out of the house. In the movie, they never get kicked out of the house. But now it's Lydia and Beetlejuice running the house.
Yes, and that's how Act 2 opens. There's like a very fun like Girl Scout / That Beautiful Sound, where they're just like scaring people who come up into the door. It's a funny like soft opening to the second act that I think really shows like the Beetlejuice Lydia bonding for a second, but then Beetlejuice gives her the handbook for the recently deceased, which she believes will help her summon her mom back. So she goes to ask the Maitlands to help her with it, and they're like, hey, we don't know if you should do that because that seems like it's bad to, summon your mom and we don't want you to be alone in this house. And she's like, well, screw you guys. I'm going to go, figure out another way to go to the underworld. Then the Dietzes show back up And this time they have Otho, who is now a guru instead of like an interior designer. He does an exorcism, which like Lydia inadvertently is tricked by Beetlejuice into banishing Barbara, basically, like starting to exorcise Barbara. And because of that, Beetlejuice is able to extract a promise to, like that she will marry him. I believe that's what happens here. And then she tricks them into going to the underworld. Basically, she's like, okay, well, Beetlejuice is going to banish the Maitlands to the underworld. And then she's like, let me say goodbye. But then she just goes into the door to the underworld instead. This bit is a little bit loose. I think they are trying very hard to incorporate elements of the movie, which does and doesn't work. I think it works pretty well, but like it isn't as tight as the first act.
I think it works well when Miss fucking Argentina shows up.
Listen, it's great when Miss Argentina shows up and sings about how cool it is to be alive, and now she's sad that she's dead.
Yeah, and it's the same actress as the stepmom.
Yes.
And she crushes it.
She does a great job. There's a bunch of characters with like goofy, like ways that they've died. Like there's a dude with like a hatchet in his head. There's a bunch of football players that have been killed. There's an homage to the movie where there's a man with a shrunken head.
Love
that's really good. But yeah, they do that song. Miss Argentina realizes that Lydia is still alive. Then they run into Juno, who shows back up here, and she's like, hey, you're not supposed to be here if you're not dead, but we're going to change that. And then they kind of run through the underworld for a bit, and then we have Lydia's, like, she can't find her mom. She's very upset, and she has this ballad, Home, which, again, is just like another powerhouse, like just incredibly emotionally moving piece where she sings, and I just really love that song too. Caruso's performance is just out of this world. Both me and Leyla, had started watching the musical together at this point, and like are both just like, why is music so emotionally moving? We should stop watching things on Mortified that make us cry.
Well, we had a false start to watching this together because we got on, and then as we got on the call, I get a phone call from my bank that my debit card has been spoofed and somebody drained the entire contents of my bank account in small DoorDash transactions.
DoorDash.
Listen, I'm not upset because they didn't steal from me. They stole a rounding errors amount of money from my bank. They have inconvenienced me. I'm just impressed from a pipeline standpoint how they executed that many transactions in that short amount of time. So, and then we watched this musical and then I started crying. So today's been an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, Leyla maybe has had a little bit more of it than me today. But yeah, basically we have this confrontation between Lydia and Charles, where Charles is like, you know what, I miss her too. I miss her so much. It's just so painful to think about her. But you know what, if you want to talk about her, we'll talk about her. We'll come back. We won't forget her. I'm so sorry that I neglected you. I love you. And they team up and they go back to the real world, where they all resolve to defeat Beetlejuice together with the help of the Maitlands and Delia. Lydia does a thing where she's like, no, of course I'm excited to marry you, Beetlejuice. And they do the number Creepy Old Guy, which is very silly. And like maybe should be mandatory viewing for like every man over the age of 15. Just to be like, hey, this is what women think of you, by the way, when you're being a creep.
Yeah. My favorite joke was the one where Barbara and Lydia and Delia, I think, were like, oh, when men yell at us from across the street, we're not disgusted, we're just shy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a little long, but I do think it's just a very fun number. There's a bunch of dancing skeletons. They do like a little wedding scene, and then Beetlejuice is brought back to life. He is immediately murderous, but then Lydia kills him with her stepmom's weird art. And then, Beetlejuice is about to be banished to the underworld, but his mom, Juno, shows up and, she throws him into the underworld. But then she's also coming for Lydia. But then Beetlejuice comes back on the big sandworm, and eats his mom. They have kind of a genuinely touching, final scene between Beetlejuice and Lydia. I really like their goodbye. Although immediately preceding that, there's a bit where Beetlejuice is like, I'm going to miss you, Adam. You're so sexy. He tries to harass Barbara one more time, but Barbara breaks his arm. He's like, okay. He goes up to Delia and he's like, we didn't talk much, and he just leaves. And then he's like, oh, Charles, you old son of a bitch, never change. And Charles is like, but I have changed so much. This whole journey has meant so much to me. And now I'm a changed for the better, a man who's changed for the better. And Beetlejuice is like, well, then go fuck yourself. Being able to say fuck in this musical really helped, I think.
Yeah, if anyone, Beetlejuice and Lydia should absolutely get to say fuck. I also liked when we come back to Beetlejuice from the Netherworld, he's doing a game show where he's trying to kill Otho and Delia and the Maitlands, and Delia's name is Delia on the little plaque on her podium, and then Barbara's name is Barbara on her plaque, and Adam's name is Sexy. They're consistent.
It's good.
I do want to mention, I think one of the things I really liked that the musical tightened up was this importance placed on a name. Because, right, in the movie, it's just Beetlejuice. I can say his name 3 times, you summon him. In the musical, it is Beetlejuice and then foiled with Emily Dietz, the dead mom. Because there's a really nice tension they set up when the first opening scene is Emily Dietz's funeral and we hear her name. We know her name is Emily Dietz. And then there is immediately, we're starting with dead mom, there is a refusal among the cast to say her name. And it feels more taboo than Beetlejuice, which is supposed to be the big taboo of the show, is to say his name 3 times. And then that changes in the Netherworld with Charles and Lydia when he finally says her name, says Emily. And again, oh my God, Lydia's actress just is such a fucking, Miss Caruso! She is, first of all, in that scene, running up and down the stage, guttural screaming for her mother. Is so heart-wrenching. And then, fun fact for all of you aspiring actors out there, the saddest thing you can do on stage isn't cry. It's actually try to not cry. That is, holding back tears is the saddest thing you can do on stage. And she does such a good job of it. And then the moment he says Emily, the dam just bursts. It is so good. And it is, I think, thematically such a good play on, the weight of a name, and that being named and being called, breaking that barrier of invisibility and recognition. It's really good. I thought it was a really nice touch that they did that, because the movie again just alluded to the mom being dead, because by Lydia mostly pointing out that Delia's her stepmom. But this was I thought this was a really nice touch.
Yeah, no, I think it's not. It's not especially subtle, but I think it works completely well. The theme of the power of one's name and speaking it's really well executed. So, yeah, just really enjoyed this. The final scene is them doing Jump in the Line, the Shake Sonora song. And they levitate Lydia again. It's very cute. Sophia Ann Caruso is just adorable in this. I want to adopt her. She is so charming. It's great. And they smartly blend it with that home song. So it has this more emotionally resonant final hit. So it's not just this silly bit, but it also ties in with the emotional weight of the musical. And then that's the end. And it's way better than a musical based on fucking Beetlejuice has any right to be.
I fully agree, and I'm kind of sad now that I missed it when it was on tour coming through Buffalo.
Yeah. Highly recommend that one. Beetlejuice, the film, I could take or leave. I have no opinions on Beetlejuice, which came out earlier in September.
Yeah, and we will not be watching it.
Nope.
Well, I can't stop you from watching it if you want to, but
I do not give a shit. No.
Great, fantastic.
But yeah, I don't know if we have any other talking points we wanted to hit. We talked about the 80s being fucking wild. Shout out to puppets. We did a little bit about the Tim Burton Effect, which I do want to talk about in our marketing minute. But do you have anything else we should hit?
No, I'm ready to set up our next multi-million-dollar idea that nobody will fucking pay us for.
Yes. Again, Netflix, Disney,
Hulu.
I'll take
Fucking
foreign investors at this
Tubi?
point. Tubi, yeah.
Foreign investors, Channel 1, well, maybe not Channel 1 Russia.
I was going to say Russia Today. Maybe not. maybe after the election. But like, yeah. So Leyla, the original Beetlejuice had a budget of $15 million. We are also being given a budget of $15 million, and we need to make a movie that makes teenagers into insufferable people,
Yes.
and influences them for the rest of their lives. How do we create a distinctive style that makes a million annoying fans?
Puppets.
Good start.
Our movie must include puppets.
Okay.
A pathetic man. Mm-hmm. If you think about Tim Burton, Edward Scissorhands, pathetic. Jack Skellington, pathetic. Beetlejuice, pathetic.
Okay. Yes.
Pathetic man. Our point of view character, some sort of spunky teenage girl.
Yeah, that's easy. Everybody
Easy.
loves a spunky teen girl.
We love a spunky teen girl. Those are my 3 pillars. Now, if we think about Mr. Burton, right, there's some sort of morose concept he is focused on. So what is our morose concept?
Okay. In the dystopian future of 2024, I think a lot of young people feel at both times like they are expected to act like adults, and also that they are being kept in like padded rooms because the internet is becoming increasingly hostile to themes that are in any way adult, whether that's sexuality or violence or even language, right? So what if there is our protagonist, our spunky teen, is some sort of like internet personality, maybe a Twitch streamer, maybe a YouTuber, maybe they even do actual play, role playing, right? But they're trying to bring more of a dark energy into places like TikTok, like Twitch, like YouTube that they don't want there.
Mm-hmm. A Jumanji-like actual play experience where they get sucked into the world, but the world has to abide by the Twitch terms of service.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's really good, because then when we do puppets, the puppet violence is all very like confetti going everywhere, and they're like having to deal with the like very serious situations they find themselves in, where there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of people being harmful to them, but because they're applying the Twitch terms of service, it is framed in an advertiser friendly way and trying to grapple their way through that.
And they can't have the serious conversations that they need to have because they can't use the words that they need to use to express themselves.
Right. Maybe this is like a coming out story. Maybe the teen girl is a trans girl. Maybe she's, a lesbian or something like that. But something that's like, especially about sexuality, I think that works really well when trying to go against, the internet being weird about, people with marginalized sexualities.
That, I like the idea of a coming out story. Who's that one Twitch streamer who is just like the most gender fluid motherfucker?
Is that Finster?
Finster, yeah. There's something there.
There's something there.
There's something there. I like the idea of like almost like David Bowie's Labyrinth ass.
Yes.
Big puppets, big emotions, big feelings. But it's like you're playing a game of taboo because you can't talk about anything that's happening. And so nothing has the emotional impact that you need it to have, and no one is taking you seriously, and it feeds into that like teenage angst of not being heard.
Oh my God. If there's a number in this musical that's just called Unalive, where you are trying to talk about the trauma that's happening around you, but you can't use the word kill.
Yes. And it's all just a song of euphemisms, and it's the most frustrating experience in the world.
Oh, God, that's a really good idea. We're so smart.
Listen, I don't think we need $15 million for us. Maybe that's the puppet budget. I think this would be a spectacular one-act off-Broadway musical.
Yeah,
a
no,
cult
100%.
classic.
Yes, we could do this easy. So yeah, Andrew, I know we've had our differences in the past, but Mr. Weber, if you do want to lend us a cool 2.5, 3.5 mil, we can make something happen with this. Mostly will be spent on cool puppets. I know that
you love practicals.
Yeah, and you love tabletop role-playing games, or at least you will after you see this musical. So just think about that, Andrew. Yeah, Leyla, when we are not doing, again, the best fucking ideas that anyone's ever heard in their goddamn life, where can we be found on the internet?
Find me at LEYLSES on Blue Sky and Tumblr. What am I up to? I'm porting all of my essays to Medium. It's like the third time I've ported my essays, but they've got to live somewhere. And I'm also going to, if one of the 30 of you is an aspiring, sorry, I hate that word, is a future game developer, and you want advice, I'm going to be writing up all of the advice I give to my mentees on that Medium blog, and I will post that on Blue Sky and my Tumblr. And I've also started working on my webcomic again. I don't know if it's going to be one of the many false starts I've had, but it feels promising right now, so who's to say? Aaron, first of all, Aaron, congratulations on your book release. How's that going, and what about you?
Yeah, To Taunt for the Ravenous, both the tabletop RPG and the novel that it is based on, are out now. That's at aaronsxl.itch.io. If you like weird Catholic monsters, if you like Cold War drama, if you like thinking about what the world might be like if we got revenge for the things that Henry Kissinger did, To Taunt for the Ravenous might be up your alley. You can find me on itch.io, obviously, at aaronsxl.itch.io. You can find me on YouTube at Aaron A.A. Voigt, where I make tabletop video essays about tabletop games. You can find me on Tumblr at Monster Factory Fanfic and Blue Sky at A.A. Voigt, where I also talk about stuff, mostly tabletop games, occasionally writing. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshco from the album Filmmaker's Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshco.bandcamp.com. Leyla, how do we want to end this double feature?
Well, Aaron, I think this episode has been a sucks yes.
We'll see you all next time.